Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we are exploring this whole idea of inviting Christ into your life for positive change. It's really fascinating to me, at least, how this concept, it just kind of transcends age and complexity. It appears
Right.
everywhere. Like we have these two sources for today that really illustrate this beautifully, I think. And they're very different sources. We have a simple children's song, and then we also have a passage from the book of Revelation.
Yeah, that is interesting.
You know?
It is. What's really fascinating to me is how these two sources, despite all their differences in form and intended audience, how they both kind of converge on this one really profound idea. And it's that the simplicity of the children's song and all the intricate symbolism of Revelation, they both kind of highlight this really transformative power of inviting Christ in.
Okay, let's start with this children's song.
Okay.
It's called Into My Heart.
Yeah,
And I think it'll set the stage really well for our discussion.
sounds good.
Okay, so this is Into My Heart.
All right.
Pretty catchy, huh?
It is.
It really emphasizes the directness and the simplicity of this whole invitation.
Exactly. Like the lyrics, they just cut right through all that theological jargon and get straight to the heart of the matter. It's a pure and just unadulterated expression of welcoming Christ in.
Yeah. And there's a beautiful parallel, I think, in Revelation 3:20,
Okay.
where it says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him."
Yes. The knocking at the door passage, that's such a powerful metaphor for the nature of this relationship. Christ is present and he's seeking connection with us, but he still respects our free will. He's
Right.
not going to force his way in. It requires a conscious choice to open that door.
So both the song and the passage here, they both underscore the importance of a personal invitation.
Right.
It's not about passive belief. It's about actively choosing to welcome Christ in.
I agree.
But then Revelation takes this idea a step further, right? It mentions supping with him and he with me. What do you make of that?
It's intriguing, isn't it? In many cultures, sharing a meal signifies intimacy and fellowship. I see it as a metaphor for the depth of the relationship that Christ desires with us, one of constant companionship, sharing life's joys and sorrows together.
So it's not just about a Sunday morning kind of connection.
No, not at all. It's about integrating him into the fabric of our daily lives. Think of it like inviting a cherished friend to your home for dinner. You wouldn't just let them sit there in silence, would you?
I see what you mean. You want to engage with them, share stories, build a deeper connection.
Right, exactly.
But Revelation also mentions a reward for those who overcome, sitting with Christ on his throne.
Yes. That's an image that really speaks to the transformative potential of this relationship. It suggests that by welcoming Christ in and persevering through life's trials, we can achieve a level of spiritual victory and intimacy with him that's almost unimaginable.
Okay, but what does overcoming really mean in our everyday lives?
I think it's about facing those inevitable challenges, whether they're big or small, and facing them with faith and resilience. It's about not giving up even when things get tough. And when we invite Christ into those struggles, when we lean on him for strength and guidance, that's when we start to see real change and growth, the kind of overcoming that Revelation describes.
So we have this simple children's song saying, "Come into my heart," and then we have this rich biblical passage filled with doors, meals, and thrones, and it's remarkable how they both point to the same profound truth, the importance of personally welcoming Christ into our lives.
Absolutely. And it's not just a one-time decision. It's an ongoing process of inviting him in day after day, moment by moment.
It makes you wonder, what kind of life opens up when we do that?
That's where it gets really interesting. By continually inviting Christ in, we open ourselves to a life of purpose, peace, and perhaps even a seat at the table with the King.
I love that image, a seat at the table with the king. But what does that actually look like in our lives?
It's not necessarily about literal thrones or physical meals. It's about cultivating a deep and abiding connection with Christ, allowing his presence to transform us from the inside out.
So how do we make that a reality? How do we truly sup with Christ in our everyday lives? I think that's what we need to unpack next.
I agree. And I think it starts with awareness, recognizing those moments, big and small, where Christ is knocking gently on the doors of our hearts. It's about being present, being mindful of those opportunities to connect with Christ throughout our day. It's like that saying, stop and smell the roses. But in this case, it's stop and notice the knock.
I like that analogy. So what does that look like practically? Give me an example of how we can notice the knock in our everyday lives.
Well, imagine you're facing a challenging situation at work. A difficult decision, a conflict with a colleague, the kind of thing that triggers stress and anxiety. You could just power through it on your own. relying solely on your own logic and experience.
Which is often our default mode, right? We try to muscle through things ourselves.
Exactly. But what if in that moment you paused and invited Christ into the situation? What if you acknowledged his presence and asked for his guidance?
So are you talking about actually stopping and saying a prayer in the middle of a work crisis?
It could be as simple as a silent prayer, a brief moment of reflection where you acknowledge Christ's presence and ask for his perspective.
But how does that actually change things? I mean, does a quick prayer really make a difference in a tough situation?
It's not about expecting a magical solution to suddenly appear. It's about shifting our perspective, opening ourselves to a different way of approaching the problem. When we invite Christ in, we're acknowledging that our own wisdom is limited, that we need his help to see the bigger picture.
So it's not just about getting the right answer, it's about changing the way we approach the problem in the first place.
Precisely. It's about shifting our focus from me to we, from my will to thy will. It's about surrendering our need to control everything and trusting in a wisdom that's greater than our own.
And maybe that's where the real transformation happens. Not in some dramatic overnight change, but in those subtle shifts in our thinking, our reactions, the way we approach the world.
I think you've hit on something crucial there. It's about a gradual process of aligning ourselves with Christ's way of being in the world.
Which brings us back to the idea of overcoming that we discussed earlier. It's not just about conquering some external enemy. It's about conquering those internal barriers that keep us from fully experiencing Christ's presence in our lives.
That's a powerful insight. It's about overcoming our fears, our doubts, our ego-driven need to be in control. It's about letting go of those things that prevent us from opening the doors of our hearts and allowing Christ to enter in.
You know, thinking about it this way, it seems like inviting Christ in is not a passive thing. It's not a one-and-done decision. It's an active, ongoing choice that we make moment by moment, situation by situation.
And it's a choice with incredible rewards, not just in the afterlife, but here and now. A life of deeper meaning, peace, and the joy of knowing that we're not walking this path alone.
So when we go back to that simple children's song, it's not just about inviting Jesus into our hearts in some abstract way. It's about making him a part of every aspect of our lives, even the messy, challenging parts.
Absolutely. It's about letting him into those boardrooms and those family dinners, those moments of doubt and those moments of joy. It's about making him a true companion on life's journey.
And I love how this connects to that powerful image from Revelation, sitting with Christ on his throne.
A symbol of ultimate victory and intimacy. It's not just a destination, it's a journey. And each time we choose to open a door to invite him into our hearts and lives, we're taking another step closer to that throne.
It's like we're building that throne together, brick by brick, with each act of faith, each moment of surrender.
That's a beautiful image. And it reminds us that even though the journey may be long and there will be inevitable bumps along the way, we're not traveling alone.
We have a constant companion, a guide, a source of strength, who is always knocking, always waiting patiently for us to open the door.
And when we do, when we truly let him in, that's when life begins to change in profound ways. That's when we start to experience the abundance, the peace, the joy that comes from walking hand in hand with the King.
It's interesting listening to you talk about this. It makes me think about all those closed doors in my own life, the times I've tried to handle things on my own when maybe I should have invited Christ in.
We all have those moments. We all struggle with the temptation to rely solely on our own strength. But the beauty of this relationship is that there's always another door, another opportunity to open our hearts and let Christ in.
Yeah, it's never too late to start opening those doors.
Yeah.
And it seems like the more we do, the more we invite Christ into our lives, the more we experience that transformation you were talking about, both within ourselves and in the world around us. It's like a ripple effect, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Each act of inviting Christ in creates a ripple of positive change, not just in our own lives, but in the lives of everyone we touch.
You know, as we wrap up this deep dive, I keep thinking about that line from Revelation. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches.
Yeah, it's a powerful call to action. It's not just about passively hearing the words, but about truly listening with our hearts and then acting on what we hear. It's about integrating these profound truths into our daily lives.
And it's really amazing how both the children's song and this passage from Revelation, despite all their different styles and audiences, ultimately lead us to the same place.
Yeah, they do. They both highlight the transformative power of actively welcoming Christ into our lives. They both remind us that this is a personal, intimate connection that can change everything.
It's not about blind faith or rigid adherence to dogma.
Yeah.
It's about a dynamic, ongoing relationship with a higher power that can bring purpose and meaning to our lives.
And that change begins within, doesn't it? It starts with opening those inner doors, confronting those fears and doubts that hold us back, and allowing Christ to work in us from the inside out.
For some people, this might sound a bit overwhelming. Like, okay, I'm supposed to invite Christ into every single decision, every single moment of my day. How is that even possible?
It's not about striving for some kind of unattainable perfection. It's about intentionality. It's about cultivating an awareness of Christ's presence and a willingness to invite him into those moments, big or small.
So maybe it starts with those everyday moments of challenge, that difficult decision at work, a conflict with a loved one, a sudden wave of anxiety or fear. Those are the perfect opportunities to notice the knock, right?
Exactly. In those moments, instead of just reacting from a place of fear or ego, we can pause, breathe, and just say, okay, Christ, I need you here. Help me see this situation through your eyes.
It's not about expecting a miracle or a quick fix. It's about inviting in a different perspective, a sense of peace, a reminder that we're not alone in this.
It's about tapping into a source of strength and wisdom that's far greater than our own limited understanding.
So if you're listening to this and you're feeling a little lost, a little uncertain, or maybe even a little afraid, I want you to remember that simple, powerful invitation from the children's song. Come into my heart.
It's a beautiful prayer, a plea, an open door to a life-changing relationship.
And that's really the essence of this whole deep dive. It's about recognizing that Christ is constantly knocking, patiently, waiting for us to open those doors, both big and small, and to invite him into every single aspect of our lives.
And when we embrace that invitation with open hearts, we step into a life of purpose, peace, and incredible possibilities.
And we really hope this deep dive has encouraged all of you to reflect on those doors in your own life. Like, what areas need Christ's presence, his guidance, his love? We encourage you to approach those doors with courage and faith and just see what unfolds.
Yeah, you might be surprised by the transformative power of that simple invitation. Come in.